Hello, everybody. At this point, I'm just gonna have to give up on trying to keep you on the same pace with the face-to-face students because, believe it or not, at this point, you all are just going to be moving ahead of them, which probably will end up being fine. And we'll have to see how that works in the context of next year. So for this time around, what you are doing in this chapter, if you haven't figured it out already, is pronouns. So the week before your test, you read a little bit of chapter 8. This time I'm going to be teaching you hopefully more about just simply how pronouns work. And so I'd like to do this primarily through an expansion on the whole phrase thing that we did last chapter. So the basic concept here is that pronouns within the context of phrases, especially demonstrative pronouns, more or less act like adjectives. So you can, so demonstrative pronouns will agree with the noun that they are pointing to, because remember, demonstrative comes from the Latin demonstro, which means to point to or to show or something like that. So the pronouns, the demonstrative pronouns, which are pronouns which point to a specific noun, and in order to indicate which noun they point to, they must agree in gender, number, and case. So you have the three different genders for the nominative singular here. So hic fluvius magnus, this would mean this big river, or this great river, if you'd like. Haec insula magna would mean this great island. And then hoc oppidum magnum, this great city. Now, of course, depending on the context, you might need to change some stuff, and in which case you can change the number and case. If you remember, the ius ending is how pronouns end. So if you wanted to say not this great river, but of this great river, so for instance, these are the fish of this great river. I don't know, maybe you're talking to a fisher or something like that. Then you would say of this great river. That would be the form you would do it. If you wanted to be talking about how you're putting stuff into, let's say you're putting stuff into these great rivers, in which case you'd have to change again. Then you need to change it to accusative plural. So hos fluvius magnos. Either way, the point is that the demonstrative pronouns, which is basically the hic, haec, hoc, as well as the ille, illa, illud, the demonstrative pronoun will agree with the noun in gender, number, and case. For the more complex phrases, it can be a combination of different things. So for instance, you can have multiple ones in the sentence, and you can combine it with other forms of phrases. So for instance, this would be a genitive phrase. So this servant of these men. Again, it's not so much a matter of what's the real life context of when you would use this, but rather just simply, this is simply how the grammatical sentences would work. So this servant of those men, or you can also combine it with a prepositional and a genitive phrase. So around the city of that master, around the city of that lord or that master. And then I typed this up just because I wanted to see how absurdly long of a phrase I could make it using more than one type of pronoun. So I have a demonstrative pronoun and then the interrogative pronoun as well. So if you remember the quis, que, quid words, this is the masculine genitive plural. So obviously if there's a genitive in it, it's going to be a genitive phrase. I decided that this was going to be in the dative case just because I remember that we didn't really have many of those as examples. So you would translate this into something as two or four the great house, because it's singular. So two or four the great house of which shopkeeper, basically. So remember, tabernarius more or less means shopkeeper. So to or for the great house of which shopkeeper. You can use to or for in the translation of the dative, or you can put like to / for. Either one of those would work. All right, and so there's only really one more thing that we need to really talk about, and that's the fact that unlike the previous assignment when it came to phrases, I noticed that quite a few students actually had some difficulty, it seemed like, with the concept of, say, like a phrase versus a sentence. So what's the difference between a phrase and a sentence? The difference is simply this. Phrases are just sort of a combination of nouns, adjectives, and pronouns that go together and don't form a complete sentence. So basically, the difference between a phrase and a complete sentence can oftentimes just simply be the fact that a phrase doesn't have a verb. So there's no verb here. There's no verb anywhere in here. Hic is a pronoun, servus is a noun, illorum is another pronoun, and virorum is another noun. Circum is a preposition, oppidum is a noun, domini is a noun, ilius is a pronoun. Magnae is an adjective, noun, pronoun, noun. And so in here, we do have verbs. And because of the fact that we have verbs, we have complete sentences. So hic vir magnus est, we have a pronoun, we have a noun, we have an adjective, and we have a verb. We have the whole shebang right here. A similar thing with here, except now there's no adjective, but that's not the point. So a lot of people translated on the previous assignment, they translated the phrases as sort of like short sentences, and so there were a lot of added ises and ares and stuff like that. So now you get to distinguish. You get to sort of like be, okay, so does it have an est or a sunt, or in one case another type of verb? So this is an imperative. If the answer is yes, then you translate it as a sentence. So this would be, this man is great. Then this would be libri ab oppido hoc sunt. So the books are from this city. So libri sunt ab hoc oppido. So the books are from this city. And then this literally means like pick up the children away from here. But I would say it means like in English would just simply be take those children away from here, more or less. So that should be everything. Hopefully this was helpful for this. I think that the phrases are surprisingly difficult for certain students, so I hope that doesn't become too much of a bad thing. But anyway, hopefully this assignment works out and gives you more familiarity with the way pronouns work.